All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating shift in how one of the world's most secretive organizations actually operates. You know, the National Security Agency, the NSA, is famous for keeping its technological breakthroughs firmly locked inside a classified vault. But suddenly, they are stepping right out into the light and launching a highly public commercial tech ecosystem. It is a massive, incredibly unusual pivot for an intelligence agency, and honestly, it signals that a major technological threshold is right around the corner.
So let's run through today's roadmap real quick. We're going to hit the NSA's commercial pivot, dive inside the QuantumEAGLe initiative, check out the massive 2026 policy blitz, talk about avoiding a critical supply chain crisis, and finally, look at the ultimate motive, the race to Q-Day. Okay, starting with Section 1, the NSA's commercial pivot moving from invisible to public. For decades, the NSA's Laboratory for Physical Sciences essentially conducted foundational quantum research entirely in the shadows. They were producing quiet capabilities, absolutely zero press releases. And under that traditional model, government research eventually leads to applications, which then sparks commercial interest. But the NSA's new model, it completely flips the script. They are starting with industry engagement and supply chains right out of the gate and putting foundational research at the very end. Why? Because the government finally realized the true bottleneck isn't scientific discovery anymore, it's commercial manufacturing.
Which brings us to Section 2, inside the QuantumEAGLe initiative and how they are building an industry.
So, launched on June 30th, 2026, alongside the Army Research Office, the QuantumEAGLe initiative targets 5 specific focus areas. Notice the deliberate sequencing here. Industry engagement, commercial roadmaps, and supply chain advancement sit right at the very top. They are heavily prioritizing commercial viability way ahead of basic science.
The really crucial point here is understanding exactly what kind of machine they're trying to build. They are specifically gunning for fault-tolerant quantum computing. Right now, we're in what scientists call the NISQ era, noisy intermediate-scale quantum devices. Basically, they work, but their high error rates make them kind of impractical for the big stuff. QuantumEAGLe is aggressively targeting a highly reliable fault-tolerant milestone for the year 2028. They want a machine that functions flawlessly in the real world, not just a lab experiment.
And to hit that 2028 goal, the NSA isn't just hiring internal scientists to work in a basement. They posted QuantumEAGLe completely publicly on the government's open contracting website, sam.gov. By leveraging these flexible contracting authorities, the NSA is acting, well, almost like a Silicon Valley tech incubator, directly engaging in funding the U.S. commercial quantum industry. It's wild to see.
All right, Section 3, the 2026 Quantum Policy Blitz.
Let's talk about the unprecedented pace of all this.
Because this initiative definitely didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the capstone of a stunning 6-week policy sprint. Look at this timeline. On May 21st, the Commerce Department steps in. By June 22nd, the White House issues 2 major executive orders on quantum innovation. And then, just 8 days later, the intelligence community drops QuantumEAGLe. This just proves the government's highly aggressive, coordinated push toward getting a commercially relevant quantum computer running by 2028. And just to put the sheer scale of this push into perspective, $2 billion. $2 billion. That is the staggering amount the Commerce Department poured into equity stakes across 9 different quantum computing companies on May 21st alone. This is vertically integrated industrial policy in action. They are flooding the market with capital to absolutely guarantee the commercial capacity is ready and waiting when the intelligence community needs it.
Let's move on to Section 4, avoiding a supply chain crisis and the massive manufacturing bottleneck.
The harsh geopolitical reality we're facing is that building these quantum machines requires an incredibly fragile, globally concentrated supply chain. Think about what goes into these things. You need massive dilution refrigerators to reach ultra-cold temperatures, highly specialized microwave components, superconducting cables, and totally exotic materials. And right now, these are manufactured by only a handful of overseas suppliers, which creates a massive, glaring vulnerability for the United States. The government is absolutely terrified of a supply chain crisis analogous to the semiconductor vulnerabilities that crippled American industries back in 2020 and 2021. Remember that chaos? You couldn't even buy a car because of chip shortages. That fear of delayed electronics and shuttered factories is directly what prompted the executive order's intense focus on anchoring a domestic manufacturing base. They simply cannot let that happen with quantum.
But honestly, it's not just about economics, right? It's about counterintelligence.
A fully trusted, domestic ecosystem prevents foreign intelligence services from penetrating the U.S. quantum program. If your supply chain relies on foreign components, you're basically leaving the back door wide open for espionage. So by bringing it all in-house, the NSA is securing the hardware from the absolute ground up.
And finally, Section 5, the race to Q-Day, the ultimate cryptographic motive behind all of this.
To truly understand the underlying motive here, we have to zoom out and look at the NSA's core institutional mission. Why on earth would a secretive spy agency care so deeply about building a public, commercial hardware ecosystem? Like, what is the actual pressing threat they're worried about?
The answer is Q-Day. This is the theoretical capability threshold where a quantum computer becomes powerful enough to literally break our current public key encryption standards. Think about that for a second. When Q-Day arrives, every encrypted email, every secure bank transfer, every single piece of classified data protected by current standards suddenly becomes vulnerable. By accelerating commercial quantum tech, the NSA is directly accelerating their own ability to predict exactly when this day will hit.
And they desperately need to know when it will arrive so they can actually enforce these deadlines. That June 22nd executive order, it sets strict mandates for all federal agencies to migrate to new, post-quantum cryptography by 2030 and 2031. So by funding and tracking the commercial progress through QuantumEAGLe, the NSA isn't just sitting back hoping agencies meet these deadlines, they are actively managing the timeline of the threat itself.
Ultimately, it comes down to this. The NSA has realized that to secure the future of American cryptography, they can no longer just sit isolated in a lab. They have to step completely out of the vault and act as the vital connector, bridging decades of classified, top-secret knowledge with the raw, scalable manufacturing power of the commercial industrial base.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. We are currently witnessing an unprecedented blending of secretive intelligence operations and open commercial industry in this race to 2028. As the NSA builds this massive ecosystem to protect all of our data from Q-Day, it begs a huge question. As these two very different worlds merge, who will ultimately dictate the rules of the quantum future? The government vault or the commercial market? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.